Hey everyone, welcome to Off the Mat, a podcast about two women's experience in Jiu-jitsu and how that translates into our lives off the mat. I'm Justine, a bit of a renegade, outdoor enthusiast, and a white belt in Jiu-jitsu.
And I'm Karina, a full-time student, creative artist, and also a white belt on my way to becoming a black belt.
Live. Welcome back everyone to Off the Mat. This is episode number 11.
Episode 11.
Woo.
So we have two super special guests today, Meg and Paul, who we train with at our local jiu-jitsu gym here in Gainesville. And they bring to the table some pretty incredible expertise in terms of jiu-jitsu, in terms of being overall athletic individuals engaged in the pursuit of sports, in particular martial arts, which is what we do, and they're just pretty fantastic humans overall. So we're really excited to have them here today, and I think we want to give them initially a chance to introduce themselves. So we'll hand it over to you guys and tell us a bit about who you are, how you came to jiu-jitsu. I think in particular it's pretty cool that you guys are a couple that trains in jiu-jitsu together. And
It's a bit of a rare thing.
It is. I think there's a few people at our gym who train as couples. Maybe
There's some. I think it's becoming more of a thing. I think
Yeah.
it's becoming more common.
so. Take us through that journey. So, how you guys came to jiu-jitsu, whatever you want us to know about yourselves. Meg and I share a familiarity with the great city of Chicago. So
The homeland.
The homeland. But we'll let you guys take it from here.
Cool. So I think I'll probably start off because I was the one that got this whole ball rolling. I started off in jiu-jitsu about 4 years ago, I guess. I wrestled in high school and just kind of loved that one-on-one aspect. Was always into athletics, played football, played other sports. But just when I started wrestling, there was that whole aspect of just you go out there, it's just you against another human being, and you are the one that is going to win or lose one way or another. Mm-hmm. And of course, you graduate high school, wrestling's over, what do you do now? And it's like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym and work out. Okay, that's fun. I can go do some of their intramural sports teams, that's cool. But I'd always been kind of drawn to martial arts. I kind of grew up, kind of watching all the cheesy martial arts flicks, kung fu stuff, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jean-Claude Van Damme, all that stuff. So I'd watch those a million times, and then my buddies and I would just go out and try to beat the crap out of each other in the backyard.
How did that go?
It was usually just a lot of bloody noses and torn shirts and buttons flying off and all that kind of stuff.
Boys will be boys.
Exactly. So, so I started kind of getting a little bit more involved in traditional martial arts. I did some Aikido for a little while when I was in college. I did some Kung Fu after college when I moved around traveling a little bit and ended up with a cool Kung Fu school. But I kind of got a little bit bored with that too, because there was a lot of just kata type stuff, where it was just you do this and you block and then you kick and then you do this and you're hardly ever touching another human being. And I was like, well, what's the point of this? Like, is this going to work in a street fight? Not that I'm looking to get in a street fight or anything, but
Hopefully not.
yeah, so I kind of got a little bored with it. And then there was at one point our instructor started training with another MMA guy, and he started doing like one night a week of doing grappling classes, is what they called it. And it was pretty much jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. This was, 20 years ago.
Wow.
So it was probably early when MMA was just getting started.
Yeah, I think the Gracies had just started kind of taking off, and people were kind of like saying like, oh, there's something to this whole grappling thing. And I started really enjoying those classes, but then just kind of fell away from it and just kind of ended up out of the whole martial arts thing for a while and just said, well, I'm just going to go do workouts on my own and whatnot. So, like I said, 20 years went by.
Damn.
Yeah, so there's that kind of kicking myself aspect of things of like, damn, if I'd stuck with it back then, I'd be a black belt by now,
Right.
But it is what it is. So a few years ago, I started listening to like Jocko podcast, and of course, Jocko's whole thing is just any problem in your life, do jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu. And I was like, I guess I should probably do some jiu-jitsu. And we had been doing some traveling around that time, and one of the places that we ended up traveling to, there was a jiu-jitsu school right down the street. So I was like, I'm gonna check this thing out and see what this is all about. And that was that. That's how I got started. And you kind of drink the Kool-Aid, and then you're into it.
And it's crazy too, because wrestling isn't something that you hear about people doing in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, but jiu-jitsu is something that people do all throughout those decades. So, I mean, you would think that would be potentially for people a more natural progression, but I feel like a lot of people probably just, they end with wrestling, they end with their college sports, whatever, high school sports, and then that's it.
I think you do, if you ask around a lot of the guys even in our school, I think a lot of them wrestled at some point.
Yeah,
So I think it's more common than, the transition is pretty common, at least nowadays.
Right.
Yeah, and they'll always say there is a difference between the wrestler who goes to jiu-jitsu and someone who just goes to jiu-jitsu with no background in whatever. And they're always like, you can tell who the wrestlers are, because they've kind of got that background of knowing how to move their body. But we do have the hindrance, because in wrestling you never want to be on your back.
Right.
That's how you lose. So the instinct was to, if you end up on your back, you flip over right away. So I found out on my first jiu-jitsu class, going against a guy who was about half my size, he took me down, I went on my back, I immediately flipped over onto my hands and knees, went to turtle, and then he was like, cool. He was on my back and choking me out in about 10 seconds. And I was like, oh.
The hard way.
Yeah, that's how this is going to go.
Yeah,
So
I didn't know that.
it took a long time to really break that habit of like going to your stomach when you realize, like in jiu-jitsu, you want to be on your back.
Right. So Meg, you didn't wrestle in high school, did you?
No,
you
ma'am.
did some softball. What got you into jiu-jitsu then?
Yeah, I did a lot of team sports growing up. So I played softball for close to 15 years. I played volleyball, I played soccer, I played basketball, I played lots of team sports. And actually, towards the end of high school, I played all through high school, and then I stopped and I didn't play in college. But at the end of high school, I kind of had wished I had done more of an individual sport, where it is more just you, right? I loved the team aspect. There's definitely a lot of value in playing team sports, but I do think that an individual sport, there's a different kind of value there.
For sure.
So I had always wished I had done some sort of tennis or something else individual. Track and field is probably what I would have gone into. But so college, just played intramural stuff, and then grad school, if I got a workout in, it was lucky, because grad school's insane. But then I met him, and he had started a couple of years into us being, quite a few years actually, I guess, into being together. And then I just wanted, every time he would come home and talk about it, I was like, that sounds pretty awesome. I've always been kind of a tomboy. I always, I didn't wrestle when I was young, but I have boy cousins and brothers, and there was a lot of wrestling going on. We were just messing around all the time.
You learned to say uncle.
But actually, I'd like to say that I was probably one of the ones making
other people.
I believe it. I rolled with you. I believe it.
So I was always rough and tumble, and I was always looking for that thing that was going to make me feel like I did at the end of a 2-hour basketball practice. I was smoked at the end of a 2-hour basketball practice. And it took a long time to find, because going to the gym, and at the time too, I didn't know about programming or strength training very much. I would just stay on the elliptical in college and be like, okay, that was kind of boring, but whatever. It's
a workout.
Yeah. Then I found CrossFit back in, I don't know, right when we got together is when we found CrossFit. And that was I was like, oh damn, this is legit. This really makes me feel like I did when I was done with a 2-hour practice, and I can get that in 20 minutes. So we did CrossFit quite a bit for a long time, and then found jiu-jitsu, and I was like, okay, this kind of combines that feeling of I've just really worked hard, but it's also a sport. CrossFit's a sport as well, but it just was so much more of that individual thing that I had been looking for so long. So when he had started and came back, was talking about it all the time when he'd come home, and I thought it was really interesting, and then I decided I really wanted to learn some self-defense as well. So that was kind of my initial reasoning for getting into it was self-defense, protection, and then just that individual sport, kind of going back to my roots of just wrestling around.
Do you remember your first class? Did you go with him, or did you go by yourself? Were you wondering about other girls?
I do. I remember, I think my first 2 classes, I did go with you. I think the first one was at the original Gainesville location.
Okay.
Carly was there, and luckily she took me aside and helped me out.
Nice.
Kind of showed me some stuff, because I knew nothing. Aside from like a couple words, like they would say shrimp, and I was like, I've heard him say that, but what the heck is it? Like they're delicious, but how do I do it?
Do that side of a cocktail.
Right. So yes, Carly helped me on my first day, just showed me some basic stuff. Then the second class, I think, was at the Jonesville location, or maybe second or third, and there was a girl there at the time. I don't think I know she doesn't go to our gym anymore, but she was very young. She was maybe 18 years old at the time, and she was a blue belt already. Ooh. So she had come up in their kids program, and that girl smoked me. I remember being in... I was in her guard. Now I know this. At the time, I didn't know what we were doing. She was like, just slap and bump. I was like, okay, slap and bump. And I blinked, and I was on my back. Like, I didn't even know what happened. She's like stick thin, 18-year-old kid, and just went whoop. And I mean, it was probably a scissor sweep. Thinking back, it was probably a scissor sweep. And I was like, what did you just do? And by that, I was hooked. I was like, I need to learn how to do that to other people.
It's so funny hearing this, because I think both for me and Karina, you were that person where it's like, I'm in someone's guard and then whoop, I'm on my back
That
and
is so true.
tapping, and I think we both feel a lot of gratitude for all of the patience and time that you spent helping us, even still now when we train, like I'll be like, what did you just do? Like, we'll work on it after class or something
But
like that.
we'd stay after class and be like, what was it that you did on us earlier that had us on our ass?
Sure.
And you would teach us, like, full on out, you know?
Yeah, and now being in the position where sometimes I'm rolling with people who are newer than I am, and it is a very different experience. You get a different experience out of the class. Sometimes it's not the experience you want necessarily out of the class, because you're looking for that 2-hour basketball
challenge.
intensity,
Exactly.
and you don't get that when you're rolling with somebody who is fresh off the boat and doesn't know how to do anything. Obviously, there's a benefit in teaching and challenging yourself to share in the same way that you received so much generosity from others, but I think for both of us, we just feel a lot of gratitude for all that you did in those early days with us and continue to do, because also I think as women training, there's a default that you train with other women,
100%.
right? Because oftentimes that's the most comfortable, it's the least psychologically challenging for people to get over.
Sure.
And so
Lowest barrier to entry.
the lowest barrier to entry. And so I think that it does require women in that space to step up and take on that role of being, a steward for the people who are coming in, and being that teacher and that guide, even when you have one stripe or you have two stripes or three stripes, because you know more than this person walking in, and you're going to be able to encourage them to stay longer just by you giving that attention and investment.
Yeah. No, and that's what because I was, we were all that first class person, that trial guy, or the whatever they call it, we've all been there, we've all had our first class before, and I remember being really freaked out and really frustrated, because I've always had a general kind of knack for athletics. Like, I've always just kind of naturally been good at sports and just movement in general. So to do something that was totally foreign, like jiu-jitsu was different than like putting a glove on and playing softball, or, it was just a different experience. And so I remember being really frustrated in those first couple of months, but knowing, and I had some other resources to be able to recognize, like, that's just part of it. It's part of the game. You will get past it. And so then you guys are now starting to recognize, like, oh, I can actually teach somebody else something. Like, when you hit that point and in that clicks, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, I actually really do know something.
You feel good about yourself. Yeah. I learned something through all of that, like, trial
Exactly.
and...
You see the light at the end of the tunnel there.
I feel like there's something more inspiring too when you see someone who's just like 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. It's like, you're like, okay, I can learn more from that person, because you look at like that black belt or something who's teaching you, you're like, well, of course they're a black belt, they're gonna be awesome. So when you see someone who's just a little bit ahead, but who takes that time to spend with you and say, like, okay, this is what you can do, because, hey, I was right where you were 6 months ago or a year ago.
They're closer to it
Yeah.
than the black belt who might be a good teacher, but they're farther removed from where you're at in your journey right now. So, yeah.
And I
Right.
find it super endearing that part of jiu-jitsu is that like reaching out, that helping hand. And for some reason, it's so memorable, your first class, that even as a black belt, you're like, you know what, I was in your spot. And it's so normal to help somebody just because that's part of the community. And I think that's why like I've fallen in love with it, because it really is about like helping each other. We're all learning together. Like we know it's hard to learn this. It's so hard. It takes time.
Yeah.
But those of us that like continue to put the time and the effort, like it does provide good benefits.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think something that we were curious about too is the fact that you guys train as a couple, and I have a boyfriend who recently told me that he would have a hard time seeing me rolling with other people. I had told him about this experience where a guy kind of like punched me in the throat and an illegal move, but it hurt. And he's like, I would have just like beaten that guy up. And then there's also, you know, we have talked a lot about on this podcast that the positions you get into in jiu-jitsu, they do mimic intimate positions, right?
Sure.
Oftentimes positions that you would be in sexual situations and not in your like you normally are not like hopping into people's legs in your day-to-day lives, but you do that all the time in jiu-jitsu with people of the opposite sex. And so one of the things Karina and I also noticed is that you guys train with a high level of independence from each other. Like it's not that you're partnering with each other all the time, like you each own your own space on the mat when you're there. And so we were wondering if you can talk a little bit about the challenges, the benefits of training as a couple, because I imagine that both factor into your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, I really enjoy picking his brain, like, off the mat, right? So if we go home, or we watch a lot of the same YouTube videos, follow a lot of the same jiu-jitsu instructors and things like that. So we'll be like, hey, did you see Chewy's video on such and such? Did you, well, oh yeah, I saw that. Oh, I want to try that next time we go to the gym, or maybe, you know, or I mean, we've been to seminars and things like that together. So it is kind of fun to just discuss moves and like, you think this would work, or maybe I should try something different, or that's kind of fun. But I don't know. I mean, I don't ever get like jealous or anything like that, like watching you roll with other girls, but I don't know if that, you being the male, I don't know if that makes a difference on your end, but.
No, not really. I mean,
yeah.
I trust you to know that you
Yeah.
know what you're doing, and you know you've come along enough in the sport that know that it's going to work.
Right. Well, and I think too, with both of us being physical therapists, I was just talking about this with somebody else earlier today. In the world of physical therapy, when you go to physical therapy school, you are literally like your classmates. You're learning on your classmates, right? So you learn how to palpate and how to you learn all these special tests on your own classmates, because we're all there. Like you can't always have a community patient, so you're literally walking around in like sports bras and shorts, like you're half naked walking around like for 2 or 3 years.
Interesting.
With these, however, small group of people, depending on what school you go to, right? Some classes are bigger than others, but I mean, there is no personal space. There's no personal bubble. There's no, like, we are all so close physically and emotionally, because we're all going through the same really hard stuff, and for quite a few years that I think as physical therapists in general, we're just like, oh, personal space? What's that? I don't know. Like, you want a personal bubble space? Yeah. Oh, I guess that's
Jiu-jitsu is no different.
Well, right, and so I think that carries over, right? Because I think that helps me personally, and it also, like, I don't, when I see him working with somebody else, male or female, it doesn't even click, because that's just part of my
It's just
world.
normal for
I
us.
think part of it too might also come from our school is so tight knit that we know everyone on the mat. So it's like, oh, okay, you're rolling with Ryan or whoever. It doesn't matter. Like let's say some stranger came in and started rolling with you and decided that he was going to just beat the crap out of you. Well, then,
Yeah, that's a different story.
Yes. I would hope it would be a different story.
Yeah.
Well, and I
So
think,
it's like, okay, if I saw that happening, it's like, all right, next rolls with me.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
yeah.
I think that's a good point.
Well, and I think Austin, when he was on this podcast, we grilled him a bit about rolling with women and kind of things like that. And he, I think, had a really wonderful point that you just change your mindset, because you walk onto the mat, you put on your gi, and I'm here to train jiu-jitsu. And kind of those other societal, cultural, gender bias, biological factors, they drift away because here you are, you're my competitor, you're also my training partner on the mat, and I respect you as such.
Absolutely.
Not that I'm making a huge distinction that you're a woman and I'm a male.
Yep.
And I think when you're able to carry that onto the mat, that makes a huge difference in terms of those roles. But then obviously there's a line where you would be like, no, like,
right. Well, and it
I'm
can
gonna
be
go in there.
It can be tricky because biologically there is, I mean, maybe a little controversial, but there is a difference, like male and female. There is I shouldn't say always, it depends on the individual, right? But just in terms of male versus female, generally males are going to be stronger. So,
But we got the hips.
well, heck yeah.
We
That's the
got
thing.
the
The female game is different, right? The game that females play or can play is just different because we can utilize different.
Anatomically, our flexibility.
Yep.
Even our backgrounds, like cheerleading, dance, all of those help us. And
Yep, absolutely. So there is a difference biologically, male, female, but then at the same time, you can have a white belt dude, even if he's not brand new, right? Maybe it's a guy who's been training for a year and a half, but he's still a white belt, and he goes against even a blue belt female. That blue belt female is probably going to rock the socks off of that dude because of skill. And that's the cool thing about jiu-jitsu, the sport of jiu-jitsu, the skill level, like, you know, yes, you can muscle your way through something, but if somebody who, even if, that's the whole point, right? Even if somebody who's smaller, that's what the Gracies were all about. We can be smaller individuals, but still beat the pants off of you because of the skill involved. And that's, I think, what's so awesome. You know, I think that's why it can be so powerful for women to train, you know?
Right. And I think you guys both have some experience. I know Meg and I are both going to this all-women's jiu-jitsu camp this summer.
Stoked.
And so, and so where you get to learn kind of jiu-jitsu from the perspective of a female, I imagine. I haven't gone yet, but I imagine you learn,
That's
like, these are your strengths as a woman that you can bring onto the mat. So I'm wondering if you travel a lot to go to these different camps all around the United States. You've gone to different gyms. If you can speak a bit about that experience and, you know, the benefits of exposing yourself to jiu-jitsu outside of maybe just the specific gym where you're training.
Sure. You have something to say to that?
I mean, I think it's a great thing because you get kind of used to your home gym. You know everyone there, you know, so you know when you match up with someone, you're like, all right, me and this guy match up pretty well together, and then everyone else you go with, it's like a known factor. When you go to a camp, it's like, you know, it's people from all over.
It's like the first day of
all
school.
over. Yeah, exactly. It's like all over the country, all over the world. So you're seeing people from all different schools. So it's kind of like, you know, a competition.
Sure.
You know, if you were to go to competition, but in a more intimate setting. So you're working with people that are just out to learn, just like you.
In a more laid-back setting.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, competition, you're out for the kill.
Right.
Camps, you're learning with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
And some of the instructors that they'll get out there are just, you know, world class. You know, you'll see some black belts with 6 or 7 stripes on their belt. It's like, you know, these people have been doing it forever, and they're teaching other black belts who are just soaking it up like they're white belts.
Yeah. As if they were white belts.
Yeah. Yeah. So they say like going to these camps like I'll rock it right now, Origin Camp in Maine coming up end of August. Do it if you can, because it is 1 week straight of learning from the best in the world.
Wow.
And
3 times a day for 7 days.
Damn.
It's a lot of jiu-jitsu, but you come back like your head, it's like a fire hose. The week is like a fire hose of information, but it's
I can only imagine.
it's
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's very daunting at first, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's one of those lifetime experiences that you're like, you can't get that intensity like that. And I don't want to say intense like it's, you know, they're yelling and screaming at you. It's not that at all. It's
Right.
just that volume.
Yeah.
I don't think you can get that anywhere else.
You know what? I think we experienced that a little bit when we were training for a competition.
Sure.
It's like when you up the amount of time that you train, the amount of time that you learn, you do learn quicker. So
And I noticed that in the two of you as we were going, you know, I wasn't training with you very much for the competition, but I was
After.
trolling with, Well, I was training with you during class and stuff, and I was like, dang, these girls have I could tell you've upped your game. I could tell. I could feel it in the way that you rolled. So it made a big difference.
I mean, you helped so much in our journey. I mean, she even came out like an early morning, helped us with our even warm-ups that we were going to do before competition, which is nice because you do have that physical therapy background, so you're able to give us some insight on what's best to get our heart rate up, how soon should we have it up.
Yep.
And that was another thing that we kind of wanted to touch on as well, is your physical therapy background, and kind of like specifically as an athlete, like maybe something that we can do, whether it's in class to help our bones or joints better, maybe after class, any physical therapy insight on jiu-jitsu as a back broken, like neck broken, type of person.
Because let's be real, jiu-jitsu is not the most gentle sport.
I think Meg and I have a very unique proclivity for collecting bruises that is unmatched.
Will they pick up on camera? Because Lord, yeah,
some big ones.
Like a ripe peach.
I know, very much.
Yeah, I felt better actually seeing Meg's legs, that I was not the only one suffering from.
It's the pale
leprosy.
Polish skin. It's the pale Polish skin, I think.
I'm not even Polish. I don't know where
I'm very Polish.
But
yeah, so I mean, I think in terms of maybe during class or like, on the day of a class, maybe like just before class, I think mobility is really key.
Okay.
I think making sure that prior to your class, you're doing something to prime your joints, prime your muscles, like you mentioned for your warm-ups, getting the blood flowing, not just static stretching. There's a time and a place for that, but you're about to simulate murder. So you gotta get the juices flowing. You have to get the blood flowing. So doing more, something that, it could be as simple as jumping jacks or jogging in place or something to kind of just get your blood pumping through the full body first. So a lot of the warm-ups that we've been doing recently in class, he's been doing much more functional. Right? I know, I like it. It's much more functional type movements that really help you kind of get your heart rate up and get you sweating a little bit and get your blood flowing a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think that's
and
important.
this is important for injury prevention in the class.
Absolutely. It not only is it priming your, think of like greasing a squeaky door hinge, it's kind of like priming the joints.
Yeah, I like that you use the word prime.
Yeah. It's also, blood is warm, right? If you've been sitting all day, a lot of people sit at a desk all day for work, or they drive a lot for work, and your muscles aren't going to be ready for quicker movements like what we have to do in jiu-jitsu. So to get the blood flowing through them, it's warm, it's heat, it's, I don't know what other words to use, but it kind of just helps everything start to move and flow better the way that they're supposed to, so that it prevents those muscle tears, those sprains, those strains, Yeah.
You want to simulate the movements that you're about to do.
Okay.
So, I think we've been doing a good job lately of saying like, okay, well, we're going to go into an X guard, so let's do some things where they're going to actually get our hips moving around in that same direction that are going to take us there. Of course, when you start rolling, your joints are going to go in all kinds of different directions. So as much preparedness as you can have on a general basis is going to be good too. So that's where, just kind of keeping yourself in good shape in general is going to come into play as well.
Fair.
We've talked about, so I mentioned CrossFit, that we had started CrossFit a while back, and so now we're still part of that CrossFit community, particularly here in town. So and not saying that it has to be something related to CrossFit, but strength training, having
off the mat,
absolutely right. So making sure that you are keeping, particularly some of your larger muscle groups at a point where they can support your joints, right? Because a lot of what we do in jiu-jitsu is maybe it's related to a joint lock, or you're going to find yourself in some really crazy positions, and if you don't have the strength strength can help you maybe quote unquote overcome your opponent, but it's also about protecting the strength in the muscles protect the joints, right? That's kind of in a general sense.
I found that flexibility has been like a huge component to that when I am more, I practice yoga, so when I am more on top of my yoga practice and kind of maintaining that on a regular basis, I realize that during my rolls, after my rolls, I feel so much better because you do get put in these super strange positions, and especially if you're not wanting to tap in those moments you're trying to get out, generally it requires some mobility on
And
your
willpower.
part. And willpower. But I think that's a really valid point that, you know, you might train for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours a week on the mat, but so much that you do off the mat is, you know, is designed to support you for showing up as your best self in those 3 or 4 hours that you are there training.
Absolutely, because how many times have you shown up to a class, whether it's at our gym or somebody else's gym, and you see somebody who walks in and you're like, that dude plays a sport for a couple days a week? Like, there are plenty of people who do jiu-jitsu, and that's the only thing they do. You can kind of, like, they'll walk in the door and you're like, that dude sits at a desk all day and then shows up on the mats and then wonders why his back, his hip, his knee, his whatever hurts, because jiu-jitsu itself, people often, I think probably a common reason why people start jiu-jitsu is to get fit, get healthy, lose weight. I think sometimes that is a common reason why people start.
It is a good workout.
It's a fantastic workout.
But
It's a fantastic workout, and there are certain individuals who will lose weight, for sure, absolutely. However, it's not really, you're not necessarily going to build true strength and specific strength. You're going to, you know, that stuff is very function-based, specific function, activity-based. So you're going to build a lot of strength in certain moves that we do all the time.
Or like body mechanics, body awareness. You'll learn different things.
Absolutely.
But maybe not things where you need like progressive overload.
Yes.
Like being in the gym. Like that's not going to happen in
Exactly.
class.
Right.
That's something that has to happen off the mat, for sure.
I hear you.
Absolutely. And you mentioned yoga, and I think there's a fine line, kind of a dance that has to happen with flexibility and strength. Right? So oftentimes people who do yoga or who are just, and this happens more with females than males. Females tend to be much more flexible, much more lax in their joints and ligaments. And if you add yoga on top of that, depending on the type of yoga you do, so you mentioned yin yoga earlier, that's mostly relaxation and stretching. I've taken some yoga classes where I was beat afterwards because it was like a power yoga.
You sweat in a yoga
Yeah.
class, yeah.
So, but when you are really flexible, but your muscles don't know how to control the joints in those large ranges, injury can also occur because you now have hypermobility.
Yeah.
So that's where the strength comes
It's a
in.
balance.
Yeah, you definitely want both, because you think of the guys that are super strong but have no flexibility whatsoever. Okay, they've got one advantage when it comes to strength, but you know, you twist their shoulder halfway around and they're tapping.
Yes.
Ladies with super flexibility but no strength, well, okay, you're going to get smashed all day. So you look at the best jiu-jitsu players, and they're the ones that have like this perfect balance of both. They've got good strength, but they're not crazy on one end. And they've got great flexibility, but they've got control of that flexibility.
That's the key.
Well-rounded athlete.
That control is the key. Control of that flexibility.
I think this is a great opportunity to introduce you guys as both, not only as we've seen, like, pretty knowledgeable about a lot of things, jiu-jitsu and physical therapy, but also you guys are a bit of entrepreneurs as of late, starting their own physical therapy business here in the Gainesville area. And Paul also, he is a blue belt, he's very knowledgeable about jiu-jitsu. And I also wanted to say, folks, I gave a shout out to Meg that I have rolled with you multiple times, and I also appreciate your patience in rolling with, you know, the white belt version of me that is the current manifestation, and that also you're on that list of guys who are safe for girls to roll with, and honestly, I think that's like a very reputable list to be honest.
I didn't know there was a list.
I think
It's
that's
an
huge, though.
unspoken, like an unwritten list, but it's common knowledge. I think
Sure.
when girls are in the gym, like who are good guys to roll with, and you are undisputably on that list. And I think that's like a pretty high estimation of you as in terms of just your overall character and everything like that. So thank you for being that person in the gym. But he takes fantastic notes of jiu-jitsu, and so he also has an Instagram page where all of these notes are listed in visuals. He captures it in such a succinct and simplistic way with, I don't even know how you do it. It's like mind-boggling, because from your notes, I feel like I could take Karina to the gym and we could like figure out how to do this move that would take us three weeks to learn, like in any other setting. So we'll be linking that and tagging that in our post about this episode,
as well as all of their socials, all of their entrepreneurial ventures.
So you can see it. But I did want to give you guys a chance to share a bit about your new business venture, which is geared, I think, in some sense towards athletes, right? Like people
absolutely.
who are athletic and not just wanting to recover from injury, but wanting to prevent it and to really thrive as athletic individuals.
Absolutely.
Go for it.
Yeah, so Forge Performance PT, Forge Performance Physical Therapy is our business. And yeah, so, you mentioned athletes. So it doesn't have to be, well, let me back up. So our motto is trying to keep active people healthy and strong and active through every decade of life. We do love working with athletes, but you don't have to get paid and you don't have to be a superstar to be an athlete. We are all athletes in this room. We do jiu-jitsu, we do other sports. We're athletes, right? I think people undersell themselves a lot. People who do CrossFit, the mom of 3 kids, right?
She said that the other day. She's like, I think we qualify as athletes now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
People undersell themselves in that regard, right? The mom of 3 kids who shows up at the CrossFit gym 3 times a week. She's an athlete, right? So you have to treat your body as such. Maybe you don't have a professional, somebody who follows you around all the time to rub your shoulders and do right, like some
Give you the blue M&Ms.
right. But you do have to take extra considerations in not just strength training or physical therapy, but in a lot of other aspects in life too, nutritionally and things. You kind of have to think about your body in a different way because we are athletes. So we want to take those people who they see the value in staying active. We want to work with those people and help them stay active throughout their life, not just, I turned enter age in here, 50, 60, whatever it might be, I can't do that anymore. That's crap. I mean, we've got so many people in our gym right now even who are above the age of 50 who are rocking it out there.
There's some post I saw the other day of a 68-year-old who started jiu-jitsu at 68 and then just got some belt rank. But 68 years old and you're walking into the gym for the first time to train.
Imagine how scared and intimidated you were in your first day, and then think of that dude or girl or whatever. There's the jiu-jitsu grandma. Is that her handle?
Yeah, she's awesome.
She's amazing. I've never met her, but she just seems like I just want to go hang out with her and have coffee. Like she's a rock star. She's a blue belt, and she is rocking it out there. She's probably, I don't even know what her age is, but so our business is all centered around taking people, athletes, active people, and keeping them healthy through every decade of life. That can be somebody who has an injury. It can be somebody who's just looking to get a little extra, right? They know maybe they're trying to meet a goal. Maybe they're trying to train for a race, something along those lines. So it doesn't have to be, I've had pain for X number of months or years. It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
I think also so many people, I have this experience where, there's one little thing that doesn't impede your ability to do what you want, but it inhibits you from going that extra step that you want to go. Like, I have this little pain in my elbow, and it's been there. And you're like, whatever. But I notice it in certain circumstances where, I'm choosing not to do this because of this pain in the elbow.
Sure.
And so I think that's invaluable to be able to support, encourage, and facilitate people going to that higher level and going beyond what limitations that they might have imposed upon themselves for whatever reason.
Sure.
It's an inspiring endeavor.
Yeah, I think too often there's a lot of people that will just say, okay, well, I've got this pain, I've got this injury, and I'm just going to stop doing X, Y, or Z. And they'll even go to their doctor. The doctor will say, stop doing X, Y, and Z. You're too old for that. And, we say that's bullshit.
We hear it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, our whole thing is, let's fix that problem. Or if it's just this tiny little thing, let's fix this thing before it becomes a bigger thing so that you can keep doing all this stuff. Because our bodies were built to last for 110 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, if something's going wrong with it, it's just because something's possibly just a little bit out of alignment, and we just need to get it back in alignment.
That's like maintenance, right? Like you take
Exactly.
your car for checkups,
Oil
you get
change.
the tires
It's like-
rotated, so
100%.
Yeah, imagine if you never took your car for an oil change.
Oof.
Or you never change the tires on it. It's like, okay, the tires blow out at 75,000 miles and your engine burns out at 35,000.
Yeah.
We're like, well, you gotta get a new car.
Yeah.
Well,
New body.
No, just
Yeah.
take,
call that
take care of the day.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't have that option as humans to just get a new one. So, yeah, we do. We hear that a lot, and I think it's unfortunate, and I think it does stop a lot of people from doing what they love, and it's unfortunate. I think a lot of it is up here in your head, but it's influenced by what people who you respect. Doctors are very respected in this
Yeah.
society, and I think if they're giving out poor information sometimes, I think that's
And I think
hard.
I could be wrong in this, but I think your willpower also plays a factor too, that you have to be, I've been in physical therapy before,
Mm-hmm.
and the onus is largely on the patient to enact the training and the techniques, practices, whatever, that are being recommended, and it can be challenging, so you have to kind of carry within you that desire yourself to also reach that goal that you're striving for, and I think that makes being a physical therapist a very challenging job, because you're not just a physical doctor, but oftentimes there are psychological, emotional obstacles that are preventing your client, I would imagine, from reaching the potential that you see them capable of reaching.
All the
Absolutely.
time. We are facilitators,
Yeah.
right? We're teachers. We can't make you do anything, as much as we would love to. But we're teachers first and foremost. So I can guide you through something. I can teach you why you hurt. I can teach you why you feel the way you do. I can teach you the things to do that will help it. It is up to you to do it on your own, because it does take consistency, especially early on. So yes, there is that inherent desire to work hard and get better and be okay with being uncomfortable for a little while. And that's why we've talked often, we've heard a lot in a lot of the business groups that we're part of, and they say, niche down, keep niching down to find your key person, your key avatar, or person that you client, whatever it might be. Target audience, thank you. Niche down till it hurts, right? They say niche down till you feel like you've gone too far. And we've talked a lot about it, and we're involved in the CrossFit crew, we're involved in the Jiu-jitsu crew, but we don't want to just pigeonhole ourselves necessarily into one of those groups, because we love them both. And we thought, well, our niche is actually a mindset. It's the mindset of the people who want to get better. They want to stay active. They already understand the importance of being active through every decade of life. That inherent belief is already there.
I find that so special too, that you niche down to a certain type of person, because I think that helps you get the clients that you want in that certain mindset, and then further that, you also get the satisfaction out of a good client that does want to further themselves, and like you said, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, and that's what we practice every day, every week.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're all here for, and that's what we thrive off of. We love being in these uncomfortable positions some way or another. We do love it. And I feel like all of us taking these leaps to come in every week, back to back, it really shows true to, who we are as people. And I think that's why we find such good community, because we all are like-minded in this weird way where we do enjoy, not breathing for a couple seconds,
Right.
but it brings us together.
Right.
And it makes me happy that we get to do something like this with people like you guys, who we're so fortunate to have in our lives.
And walk their talk.
Exactly.
We try,
No,
It's-
you
we were
lead
just
by your example, the principles that you're seeking to share with others through your
Great.
business, the
Sure.
principles that you guys bring onto the mat. I think for both of us, just having you guys in our lives in all capacities has been just a benediction. So we're super grateful for it.
We were just talking about it earlier today. It's the give a shit factor. Right? We were just talking about that, like just today, I think.
Yeah.
It's the give a shit factor.
Some people do, some people don't.
Right? And it's and that you can think of that on multiple levels, right? So we were just talking about, you know, the rest of the healthcare field right now where people are going to doctors and other physical therapists who it's very apparent that they don't give a shit. And I mean, we treat our clients and we it's just our everyday stuff, right? We're just doing what we do, right? We don't think of it as special. But then we hear people like today, I saw a client, he was just like, this was really great. You were so much more thorough than anybody else I've ever talked to. And I was like,
guess why?
Because the give a shit factor. Yeah. I spent the time, I listened to him, I looked him in the eye. It was one-on-one with me. I didn't pass him off to some other tech or, you know, it's huge. And I think that is, in society in general, that is lacking a lot, more so now than ever. And I think that you know, that give a shit factor really helps you to stand out. Not that we're like looking for, you know, people to clap their hands at us, but that's how you reach humans, right? Yeah. That's how you reach people.
Once you find those people.
Yep. I think we should title this episode the give a shit factor. I think this is a key thing. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming tonight to speak with us and sharing all of this knowledge and your experiences and thoughts.
Check out all of their stuff. It's going to be in the episode notes. It's going to be in the YouTube description. It's going to be in the Instagram posts. I mean, Instagram story. You've got so many ways to find them. Please look at their stuff. Please, if you're in the Gainesville area, go check them out. They've got so much wealth to offer us.
Thanks,
and whether it is
on the mat
or off the mat.